What's up, guys? So this is another edition of Bo's Book Reviews. I'm reviewing a book by this man right here, Steve Harvey. Many of you already know who he is. He's written a new book now. It's called Jump, Take the Leap of Faith to Achieve Your Life of Abundance. You may already know him from Act Like a Lady, Think Like a Man, or his other book, Act Like a Success, Think Like a Success, or from many of his TV shows. He's currently hosting a show called The Steve Harvey Show, Little Big Shots, Family Feud, and an upcoming show called Funderdome. He started out in the stand-up comedy world. He was on the Kings of Comedy tour. He also had a couple of different shows in the 90s, most notably The Steve Harvey Show. So he's been a celebrity, and he's really been killing it, and he's really been successful since the 90s. And what I love about him is that in his Family Feud shows, he takes breaks to step out into the crowd and talk about some inspirational concepts and really give some powerful advice to the crowd, which is where the idea for this book came from. He did a video last year in January of 2016 that really took off and went viral on social media, especially on Facebook. To this day, that video has 65 million views. And he's talking about the concepts here in this book. So what does it mean to jump? Jumping means taking a leap of faith, taking a gamble, and taking a risk, and gambling your security, stability, and safety to really go after what your gift is. He talks about identifying what your gift is, your God-given talent, something that you're good at, that other people struggle with, and really taking a risk for it. Gambling security, gambling a steady job, gambling a steady paycheck to really go all out for your gift and what God has blessed you with. Right? And when you do jump, there is a period of time that he talks about when your parachute, after you jump off the cliff, your parachute will not open up at first. You're going to struggle for a period of time. For him, he went through a period of about 3 years that he talks about in the book. For you, it might be 5 years, 10 years, 6 years. It really depends on the person, but there will be a period of time when you struggle, but eventually the parachute will open up if you stay persistent, you stay committed, and you continue to jump, and you continue to try different things, even after you fail a first time or a second time or a third time or a fourth. And what I really love about this book right here is that it gives the readers an inside look at what it really means to succeed and what it really takes to be successful. Because a lot of times when you look at people like Steve Harvey, who seem to have it all, you assume that these people were born gifted, or that they were born talented, or that their greatness was something that they were born with, and they just started out successful. Because my first exposure to Steve Harvey was as a kid seeing the Steve Harvey Show or seeing him on the Kings of Comedy stand-up tour. So I really, until I read this book, I did not know what Steve had to go through and the struggles and the painful setbacks and the really hard moments that he had to go to get to where he is. And it really opened my eyes to what it really takes to succeed. And Steve says that every successful person in the world has jumped before. And if you look at the stories of all of the other big name people out there, like if you look at J.K. Rowling, she was unemployed, living on government assistance with a child when she was writing her first Harry Potter book. And she was really struggling, and she was going through a clinical depression as well at the time. If you look at Tyler Perry, who's one of the top people in Hollywood right now, he went through a period of time where he was homeless, where he was living out of his car and trying to make the playwriting and the screenwriting and the filmmaking work, right? It took years for him to make it work. He had to jump. And every successful person who has made it, quote unquote, had to take a leap of faith and had to take a risk and had to take gambles and really go all out and go through that struggle to get to where they are. So let's get into Steve's official definition of what it means to jump right here. All right. And this is in the introduction of the book. Jumping is taking a risk, leap of faith toward your dreams. Jumping is making a major career move. Jumping is rectifying an issue in your personal relationships. Jumping is embracing the ambition that God has put in your imagination, and you making a commitment to manifest it in your life. So what I love about that is jumping doesn't have to be pursuing your gift, although that's like the main topic of the book. It could be in regards to your personal relationships, in regards to your health, in regards to any dream that you have in your imagination, right? Maybe having a family one day. You need to take a leap of faith and take a risk to achieve that goal. So jumping can apply to anything in your life. So how do you know if you need to jump? That is an excellent question that Steve answers in the book and in the viral video. He says if you're not waking up every single day excited to start your day and excited to go to work, then you're in need of a major jump right now. And unfortunately, most people in the world fall into that category. A recent Gallup poll said almost 70% of United States workers are not engaged by or passionate about what they do. So most people today are in need of a major jump to create a life that they can really be fulfilled, excited, and enthusiastic about every single day, right? And what holds most people back from achieving that is wanting to have security, wanting to be able to consistently provide for yourself and provide for your family through that stability of the steady job or whatever occupation it is that you're doing to provide that security. But Steve makes an excellent point on that. Steve says there's no security in putting your life and your dreams in someone else's hands. Your destiny belongs to you. If you are not happy, what are you waiting for? Your life will unfold only when you choose to make that jump. That's an excellent point. I love what he says there. There's no security in putting your life in somebody else's hands. So what holds most people back is really a false sense of security, because no matter what happens, no matter what path you choose in life, there's always a chance that you could fail. There's always a chance that you might get laid off. There's always a chance that your employer might get bought out, or that the company might go bankrupt. There's a million situations where the security might go out the window. No matter what you do, there's always a chance that you might fail. So you might as well take a chance on doing what you love. I want to give Jim Carrey credit for that quote that I just said, by the way. In a famous graduation speech at the Maharishi University of Management, Jim Carrey said, you can fail at what you don't want, so you might as well take a chance on doing what you love. So shout out to Jim Carrey for that. Something else that holds a lot of people back from jumping is waiting to jump. Steve also covers that in the book. Steve said the perfect time to jump is always right now. Waiting to jump and procrastinating on jumping is something that could really delay you from ever taking that leap of faith and ever taking that gamble for the rest of your life. So the perfect time to jump is always right now. Steve says you don't have to wait until you get your credit together to jump. You don't have to lose 10 pounds to jump. You don't have to wait until your children finish school to jump. Stop waiting for the perfect time. The perfect time to jump is always right now. The best day to take on your new life is today. So if you're waiting for something to happen in order for you to make your jump, if you're waiting for the right motivation or the perfect timing or the perfect situation, the point of this book is to get you to stop waiting and to take action right now and take the leap of faith to achieve your goals. And what's really waiting for you on the other side of the jump is an abundant life, a life full of contribution, wealth like you've never had before, the career that you've always dreamed about, living out your gift and using your gift to serve thousands, if not millions of people, and really being appreciated by the world for what you do, the gifts that you were blessed with, and who you really are, right? And adversity is a big part of that process. Something Steve covers in this book in depth is the struggle and the adversity and the pain that you need to go through to get to that abundant life. And failures are part of that. And what happens if you fail? Steve says to get back up if you fail and continue jumping. Jump a second time, jump a third time, and keep picking yourself back up and continue taking the risk until you succeed. And that's really what Steve was able to do in his life. Steve says there is a connection between struggle and abundance. You have to go through that struggle to reach that abundance and that abundant, fulfilling, amazing life on the other side. Steve says struggle and abundance are connected. The struggle comes along with the abundance. It's been my experience that you usually enjoy abundance in some form and endure struggle at the same time. Growth is all about struggle and abundance. And what I love about this book is it really illuminates all of the aspects of Steve's life, Steve's struggles, and Steve's journey that you really don't see from somebody who's in such a high position of success and who's been in the limelight for almost all of my life. My first memory of Steve Harvey was him being on the Kings of Comedy tour with Cedric the Entertainer, D.L. Hughley, and Bernie Mac, and having the Steve Harvey Show. And as a kid, just seeing him be really successful and not really knowing all of the struggles and all the pain and all the setbacks that he went through. And that's really what he gets into in this book. He started struggling in college, really. In college, he was really struggling to get good grades and flunked out of school. And while all of his friends were still in college, while all of his boys were still living that college life, Steve was starting work. He was starting his very first job at the Ford Motor Company, actually making very good money, $27 an hour, while his friends were still in school. But unfortunately, at that time, Ford started doing thousands of layoffs. Right? So Steve was actually laid off from his first job while all of his friends were still graduating. And it was a very tough moment in a hard period, being laid off for the first time, going from flunking out of college to being laid off. So Steve started jumping at every job opportunity that he could get. He worked in a lot of sales jobs. He worked for a diamond distribution company, for a soap company, and he eventually wound up selling insurance. Right, so that brings us to the year 1985. Steve is 27 years old at the time. He's selling insurance, but he doesn't feel a passion or any fulfillment from the work that he's doing selling insurance. He says, in 1985, I was just existing. I wanted more from my life than working behind a desk at an insurance agency. I wanted to be on television. I wanted a better life as a whole, and I took a leap. I quit my job and put everything on the line. With only a dream and my faith in God, I left everything behind. I went for it. So Steve, at the age of 27, he has 2 kids and a wife at the time. He decides to go for this lifelong dream that he had since the age of 9 of being on television. So he goes on the road doing stand-up comedy shows. From city to city, town to town, across the country. He's living out of his car doing stand-up comedy shows for between $50 and $125 per show, which obviously isn't enough to support himself or his family, but he made $4,000 in his first year, and he's sending as much money as he possibly can back to his wife and kids. So this is a very painful and hard period of time for Steve. His relationships back home with his wife and kids are suffering because he's spending so much time away. He's living out of his car. He doesn't have enough money to buy enough food to really feed himself. He's eating bologna sandwiches. He's eating a mostly bologna sandwich diet, and he's going into grocery stores and actually making sandwiches in the store because he doesn't have enough money to feed himself. Right, and he's showering up and washing up at gas station and at hotels, and he's living out of his car. Steve went all out with as much intensity, relentlessness, and determination as he could. And what kept him going during this period of time, he said he would visualize in his car about what his life right now would look like. He would visualize about the wealth, the impact, the contributions he was going to make, the opportunities, the people that he would inspire, the houses, the mansions, the cars. He would visualize all of that, and that kept him going. As well as his intuition and his inner voice. He was really following an inner voice and an intuition of knowing that this is what he was meant to do, and this is his gift, and this is what he's supposed to do with the rest of his life. So that kept him going, and he was doing this for a period of years. For 3 years or so. Something else that Steve says that I think is very interesting. Steve says that one of his big motivations is to leave a legacy and an impact that his great-grandchildren will remember him for, that his children's grandchildren will remember him for. He says his goal in life, my goal in life is to live in such a way that my children's grandchildren will know my name. And that's so powerful. That's such a huge goal. And I can tell that was really a motivating push for him when he was going through that painful time. And he says that losing his job at Ford, even flunking out of college, and even working for that insurance company, selling insurance for that period of time, was all a blessing because it led him to be able to now leave a legacy that his great-grandchildren will remember him for. So Steve was just about to give up on this whole thing, this whole journey and this whole struggle when he got a call from the Showtime at the Apollo, the famous show where a lot of singers, actors, dancers, and entertainers get their first big break from. I think maybe the Jackson 5 got their first big break at the Showtime at the Apollo. He got a call saying that they wanted him to come on the show. And he went on the show same night that young Jamie Foxx and Cedric the Entertainer were there. For some reason, Jamie Foxx, who's a household name now, actually got booed off stage, but Steve Harvey got a standing ovation, and just like that, his career as a big-name stand-up comedian and in television was born, right? But it took a massive and sustained effort to get there over a period of years, and he had to push through a lot of struggle and really pay the cost to get there. Steve says you have to put in a massive and sustained effort over years to get to that abundant life. And it's by following your gift. He says that your gift is the thing that you do the absolute best with the least amount of effort. For him, that was comedy, being a stand-up comedian, and being on screen, being on television, and being funny is his gift. But it's the thing that you do the absolute best with the least amount of effort, something that you do well that other people struggle with. And following that gift, following his inner voice, visualizing, keeping himself focused, and keeping himself hopeful got him through the struggle. So this next part of the book is all about an inside look at what was going on in Steve's mind during the infamous Steve Harvey Miss Universe mishap moment, which has now gone viral, which you probably know Steve very well for. During the Miss Universe pageant in 2016, Miss Philippines was the winner. Steve, by mistake, by accident, announced Miss Colombia as the winner, who was the runner-up, put the crown on the wrong person's head, and then had to walk back out on stage and take the crown from Miss Colombia and put it on Miss Philippines' head. And it was a very painful moment for him, very embarrassing. It actually got 4 billion impressions and views on social media from people just memeing it and making a joke out of it. I think people are still making jokes about it to this day. But the biggest lesson that Steve got from it was that he took responsibility for it. He didn't try to shift the blame, even though there were other people at fault, other people behind the scenes who kind of dropped the ball and didn't do what they were supposed to do. The organization actually offered to give him the opportunity to not go back out there, and they would just release a press release the next day saying they got it wrong. But Steve said no. He said he wanted to take full responsibility and accept the blame because that's something that he's accustomed to doing in his life. That's a mindset that he has. And Steve just wanted to do the right thing, which was to clear up the mistake as soon as he possibly could while it was still live on television and to give the rightful winner her crown. So he did the right thing and he accepted responsibility, and it paid off for him in the long run because people see that he's an authentic person. They see he's got upstanding and righteous character, that he was willing to accept the blame for that and not shift it around. So he's definitely gained some respect from a lot of people. And there was actually a Super Bowl ad where Steve Harvey was featured for a T-Mobile ad during the Super Bowl, making light of the whole situation. And that was one of the most popular ads during the Super Bowl. So he took responsibility, and it was a very painful and embarrassing moment for him, but it paid off in the long run because he did the right thing. One of the biggest themes of this book is struggle and abundance. So at that point in Steve's life, he was living an incredible life. He was living an abundant life of being on television, hosting multiple shows, earning millions of dollars, impacting thousands of or hundreds of thousands or millions of people. But at the same time, he was going with this horrible struggle of making a mistake that people all over the world ridiculed him for online. And he also was receiving death threats from the Colombian community because they felt like they were denied the Miss Universe crown. So it was a very painful struggle that he was going through while enjoying abundance at the same time. And the last struggle that he goes into depth here in this book about is a point in time when he owed $10 million to the IRS. His accountant of 7 years died, and Steve unfortunately found out that the accountant was pocketing Steve's payments, tax payments, for 7 years. So Steve owed the IRS $10 million. And him and his wife figured out that it would take about 12 years for him to pay this back. So Steve had to work double time doing stand-up comedy shows, hosting shows, doing stand-up comedy gigs, 6 days a week, spending time away from his family so he can make enough money not only to survive and get by and to take care of his family, but also to pay back this huge $10 million debt. And he did that for years, in silence without anybody really knowing the full depth of what he was going through. Steve was eventually able to pay off that debt when he sold his radio company, or 49% of his radio company, in 2012, but he had to really hustle and work hard for years. It was another moment in his life when he experienced a horrible struggle while experiencing abundance at the same time. So, in conclusion, this book is a powerful read because it gives you an inside look at someone who's been in the limelight for decades now, who's been successful for decades, who's all over the place hosting multiple shows, who's been doing stand-up comedy tours, and who has had an incredible run in the entertainment and show business industry. And it shows you that he's human, that he went through the struggle, that he went through the pain, that he went through the pain of living out of his car, flunking out of college, getting laid off, of owing the IRS millions of dollars, and the pain of making a horrible mistake at the 2016 Miss Universe pageant when he announced the wrong name and having to take responsibility for that painful mistake and get ridiculed on the internet. So he's human and he's been through struggles just like the rest of us, but it shows that if you jump, if you find a gift, something that you are absolutely talented at with the least amount of effort, something that you're very good at that other people struggle with, and if you marry that with a passion of actually loving to do that craft, you can live an abundant life. And you can push through the struggle and make a massive and sustained effort and live an incredible life and reach that light at the end of the tunnel. So I absolutely recommend that you read this. As always, I did not cover everything that's in this book review. So if you want to know more about Steve Harvey, if you want to learn more about this journey, if you want to understand more principles that have made him successful, make sure to go to Barnes & Noble or Amazon.com or go to the actual store and buy this book. As always, I do these reviews for two reasons. So people who don't enjoy reading as much as I do can get the full information and full value without actually reading these books. And so I can inspire people to have that love and to have that passion for reading and self-education and actually go out and pick up these books and just to motivate people and put the information out there. So if you found this book review valuable, make sure to go down there and hit the subscribe button and stay posted for more because there's a lot more on the way.